We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including reviewing an Athletic article looking at the future of Sidney Crosby if he decides to move on from the Penguins. This article went through the entire league and looked at all the potential landing spots that they felt make sense. Today we're going to look at a couple of teams that are realistically some interesting options, but not really teams that have been looked at and discussed by majority of the media. So we'll look at that. Plus we have an update on the Leafs and Anthony Stolarz contract extension talks. Where do things stand and what could possibly be done here in the near future? As Alex Pietrangelo hockey career over or not? A new ESPN article suggests he has not ruled out coming back. We'll take a look at what that could mean for the cap situation for the Vegas Golden Knights. We got a first glimpse of Matthew Schaefer in NHL preseason action. We have some updates as well on the potential return of NHL hockey to the state of Arizona. Plus, I have big news as well on a giveaway, especially if you live in Halifax, Nova Scotia. You want to stay tuned for that announcement coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have plenty to discuss here in today's video, but I want to kick off the video today with a big news announcement. I am doing a big giveaway partnering with the great people that produce the Amazon Prime series Face Off inside the NHL. Of course, the first season came out last fall. It was a big hit, very well received. I know I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. We're almost ready to get season 2 to be launched here on Amazon Prime coming up in early October. But for right now, they're doing a series of exclusive events and some unique screenings. And I have exclusive tickets to be given away to a bunch of lucky people in Halifax, Nova Scotia to go to an exclusive event. If you're interested in getting tickets, you could be among the first to see an episode spotlighting Nova Scotia's own Sidney Crosby. Just by attending, guests will also have an opportunity to win a trip to Toronto to see the Maple Leafs versus the Penguins in November, which is one of the spotlighted Monday night games on Prime this season. The series of the NHL Face-Off returns to Extended Prime in October, but you can get an early private screening September the 28th at Scotiabank Center at 4 p.m. I have a bunch of tickets to give away. These tickets cannot be purchased. The tickets cannot be resold or given away. You will need to attend the event if you're lucky enough to get your hands on some of them. So I will have a bunch of sets of tickets for 2. So all I need you to do if you're interested is to send me an email. And I'll put my email here on the screen that I use for this channel, which is Top Shelf Hockey Videos at gmail.com. I need your full legal name. And of course, your email address is what the information that'll be passed over to the people organizing this event. And you can possibly have a chance to win. I will notify you and reply to your email to let you know if you are one of the winners or not. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the names that I receive through email. I'm also promoting this on my social channels, and I will enter all the names into one of those random generators that you can do online and spit out a bunch of the winners. So you can enter this by sending an email to me. Also, as well, you can enter through social media, through my X account. So that's the main one I use the most. I mean, I do have a Facebook and Instagram for this channel, but it's not something I've really built up or taken the time to really spend a lot of time with. But on X, you'll see my post that I've made. All you have to do on there is follow that post. You need to follow the account, share the post, and then send a DM through that app and let me know that you're interested. And again, provide your name and your email address, and then I can enter that. So you could have multiple ways to enter. So I will do a post on YouTube here as well in the community center of the channel. So stay tuned for that. If you don't live in Halifax, but you know people who do, certainly pass along this information. Bring them to this video. Bring them to my X account and tell them to enter. Of course, you don't even have to live in Halifax either. It doesn't really matter where you live as long as you can get there for this exclusive event. So there are other events going on other places in other areas right now. But right now, like I said, this one is strictly tickets for the Halifax event at the Scotiabank Center on September the 28th at 4 p.m. So if you're interested, follow the directions and send me an email and follow me on X, and you can be amongst the first to see this exclusive series. And as I mentioned, another great part about this as well, just for going, you also have an opportunity to win tickets on a trip to go see the Leafs against the Penguins in Toronto as well, which would be kind of cool. So obviously, like I said, I want to thank the people organizing this and people at Sports on Prime for including me in their giveaways, and certainly wish good luck to everybody who's entering, and I hope to see my inbox filled with lots of interest. As I mentioned, let's get on to the NHL news. We do have a bunch of things to take a look at here today regarding some of the prospects, and of course we know it's preseason, so players are getting either their ELC signed or getting reassigned back to different leagues and junior and all that. One of the more notable prospects, the Los Angeles Kings, have returned goaltender prospect Carter George back to his OHL team in Owen Sound. Unfortunately, Carter George is not old enough yet to qualify to play in the American Hockey League, so he attended the first few days of camp. Now he'll move on with his junior season. The Minnesota Wild today have also signed one of their goaltending prospects, Chase Watsky, who was taken in the 2024 NHL draft in the 5th round. He gets his 3-year entry-level contract. Now, a couple other things we're taking a look at here. One, could the NHL return to Arizona? I think it's not out of the question at all. It's something we've talked about on occasion before, but there is certainly a lot of people working together in that state to try and make it happen. Now, Andrea Doan, who is the spouse to Shane Doan, has taken on the role of chair advisory committee that hopes to bring back the NHL to the state of Arizona. So they're working with local officials, and they have a big committee together now of some people with some influence there that certainly are trying their best to get everything together to work on bringing hockey back to Arizona. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen anytime soon. I'm sure this is going to be quite a process for them. But of course, Andrea Doan made some interesting comments that they feel like they have a lot, that they feel like they need to give back. Obviously, the Doans spent a lot of time in Arizona, where he played, a lot of his career there, and certainly, they're fortunate that hockey is being able to provide the life that they have to them, and she wants to kind of give back. And Shane himself is unable to take this role right now because he is technically working for the Toronto Maple Leafs, so it would be a conflict of interest for him to officially have a title like this. So she is going to take it upon herself to take this role. So that's obviously, like I said, the Doans are kind of, almost like royalty in the state of Arizona. Shane Doan, certainly, like I said, the greatest player in Coyotes history, in my opinion. Their son Josh, of course, has gone on to play at Arizona State, was with the Coyotes before they went to Utah. Now he's been traded, of course, but still, it's just a lot of connections there, and they will certainly, I always said, if hockey returns to Arizona, I do think, and wouldn't be the least little bit surprised if they play a major role and influence in helping make it happen. Now, as I mentioned, we get our first look at first overall pick from the 2025 NHL Draft, Matthew Schaefer, in preseason action, the New York Islanders against the Philadelphia Flyers yesterday. And Schaefer looked pretty darn good. I didn't get a chance to watch the whole game, but I did see some highlights. And I know the play that's getting the most attention is the back check on Matvei Michkov. He could really show off his wheels getting back hard. It kind of made Michkov look slow, to be honest. I mean, Schaefer just, I think, kind of, I know it's the preseason, and, obviously once the calendar turns to full NHL regular season, things are a little bit different. But he certainly did not look out of place, looked like he was really, really good, and that not only will he, to my opinion, be ready to play in the NHL this year, but I think he's going to have a pretty good impact and be a strong case in the Calder Trophy. So we'll see, but Schaefer looked terrific in his preseason debut for the New York Islanders. Now, as I mentioned as well, I saw an interesting article earlier today with ESPN's Greg Wyshynski, where he did an interview with Golden Knights defenseman Alex Pietrangelo. Now, I was a little confused when I saw this. I thought maybe he was just talking to him about what comes next for him, but no, it was a case of, basically saying, hold the boat here. My career might not be over. I mean, if you all remember, we saw the press conference from GM of the Golden Knights, Kelly McCrimmon, in the offseason, where he went on to confirm the speculation that Alex Pietrangelo will likely never play hockey again, and basically confirm that, he's done. But based on their salary cap situation, it sure looks like they were expecting him to not play at all this season. Now, we know with the rule changes, LTIR usage is different now, right? So it's you can get a full relief if they're not expected to return. But if there's a chance they can play, or if they can play in the playoffs, you have to factor in a different calculation, which is league average salary. So, I mean, according to Alex Pietrangelo, he does say the likelihood is low that his body will recover to the point of getting him to the standard to be able to play. However, he would not rule out a return, not only a return ever, but a return this season. So, for Vegas to get a full cap relief and get the full over $8 million that he's making, be eligible to be LTIR money, they'd have to go to the league and present their case that he is not going to play at all. Now, he's saying, I wouldn't rule that out, right? So, I mean, there's a big difference, because if they only get LTIR availability for league average salary compared to what he's making 8.8, league average is only 3.8. That's a $5 million difference. Right now, the Golden Knights are over $7 million above the cap. They need that $8.8 million LTIR availability to be compliant. If they don't get that and they get the 3.8, they'd have to trade like $4 million off their roster. Like, this could be a major issue. So I just don't see how they can be allowed to get that full relief when he says, hold the boat here. Like, I wouldn't rule out a return this year. So that's going to be something very interesting to kind of keep our eyes on and to watch moving forward. Now, as I mentioned, Anthony Stolarz and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Elliot Friedman's podcast today was touching on a variety of things. The Stolarz contract extension was one of them. He said that he believes that they're looking at 3 or 4 years for term. I know when they were talking about it on the panel last night with the Leafs and Sens game a little bit, they did talk about, I know Justin Bourne and Nick Kyprios were kind of talking about, they were not fond of signing Stolarz for term. They liked the goalie, had a good season, but, because of his history and everything, thought a very short contract extension would be best. Elliott says he believes they're talking 3 to 4 years. Obviously, the money right now is something that's not agreed upon, which is why we don't have a deal. He also says that he feels Stolarz has kind of the leverage here in the upper hand. He's made it clear that he doesn't really want to negotiate into the season, so they're kind of feeling a little bit of urgency here to get something done before the season starts. I suspect in Stolarz' case, he probably wants something done as well, knowing his injury history, that, just in case, right? You want that job security and that paycheck security, that you're not going to be screwing yourself over. If he doesn't sign an extension, what if he gets hurt with a major injury this year? And then, sometimes it's best to bet on yourself, and sometimes you have the opposite feeling and you want that security. It depends on the player. And I would suspect a player like Stolarz in his history probably looking at the security. But as Elliot points out, the other thing here that gives them leverage is that there's not really much in the way of goalies coming due here that could be available in free agency next year. And if the Leafs don't get it done and he does enter free agency, they're going to have a lot of other teams to compete with that would probably be interested in talking to him, and his numbers probably are going to end up going up because, like I said, look around the NHL and pretty much majority, if not all, the top goalies are locked up in long-term deals, whether it be Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, Sorokin, Swayman and Ullmark signed new deals last year. You got Dustin Wolf just signed with the Flames. Hellebuck signed a long-term deal with the Jets. There's quite a few of all these top guys. So at the end of the day, he could have quite the market if he makes it there and he's healthy and has a big year. But is that worth it for him, right? That's the question. So we'll see, but the Leafs and Stolarz will continue to kind of work away at this. It seems like there's a lot of back and forth, which is good dialogue, means and shows that both sides definitely have interest to get something done. Now, as I mentioned, there's also an Athletic article looking at the future of Sidney Crosby. Now, Crosby, of course, has been getting a lot of attention lately after his agent, Pat Brisson, made comments that, maybe it's not such a bad idea, basically, that he could consider moving on from the Penguins. Elliot Friedman said the other day that, it's not impossible He thinks now there's enough people in Sid's circle, if you will, that are kind of talking to him, saying, you really should consider this, that, more than ever before, people think it's a real possibility he could consider to leave the Penguins before he retires and play a season or two somewhere else. Now, he still has a couple years on his contract after signing a 3-year extension with the Penguins, but obviously a lot of teams would still struggle with the cap hit. Some more than others have more space. We talk a lot about Montreal because of the connection, childhood team, dad drafted there, like all those things that have been analyzed to over and over and over again. And then we've got the Avalanche because of the Nate McKinnon connection. But this article in The Athletic, they went through all 32 teams. And some of them they said no chance. Some of them they said maybe. Some they said, would be interesting. But, but a couple of teams that came up that would be interesting was Edmonton and Florida. The two teams that have battled for the Stanley Cup the past 2 years. Commenting like the Edmonton writer said, really, would there be a better opportunity than Edmonton, looking at a chance to play with McDavid and Draisaitl, to add Crosby to that mix? I mean, cap space would be very challenging, and assets would be challenging, but I'm not sure that the Penguins are going to get a return that people think is going to be massive, because there's no leverage by Pittsburgh, right? He's got a full no move. He's going to call his own shots if he decides to go. And I don't know that the return is going to be as big as people might realize. But at the end of the day, the Oilers do have to give something, and they have to be able to create the space necessary to do it. Of course, McDavid's contract extension is going to be something to watch here over the next coming days and weeks, too, to see if they get that done. That'll play a role in all this. But certainly, if you look at the lack of depth for the Oilers, if they could figure that out, it would be a pretty amazing thing to think about. I mean, it's you have to think that would be intriguing for Crosby, especially after getting a chance to play with McDavid at Four Nations. They're going to play together again at the upcoming Olympics. Interesting thought. And then, of course, the connection with the Panthers, of course, is obviously back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. Does he want to chase a fourth cup? What's most important to him? We know that the connection to fellow Nova Scotian and good buddy Brad Marchand in Florida now. Would he be able to convince Sid to come down? But again, that would be a very intriguing salary cap situation. They'd have to give up a couple of players off the roster. Is that something that they would do? Is that something Crosby would want to do? Florida was one of the teams that the writers in The Athletic thought was a lot more likely than most if he did not choose Montreal or Colorado. Edmonton was a team that I don't think got a lot of love, but I thought it was very interesting, and the Edmonton writer did make I thought a good case for why it would be very fun and interesting, but it'd be very, very, very challenging to work things out. But I think Montreal and Colorado are still probably getting more votes, a little bit more love from writers saying they thought those scenarios were more likely, but you just never really hear Crosby's name linked or talked about with other teams. But pretty much any other team that was rebuilding or just doesn't have any kind of personal connection was kind of given, for the most part, a very unlikely scenario. But could you see Crosby considering other teams like the Oilers or the Panthers? I know most people, including Elliot Friedman, thinks that there's no way Crosby considers this before the Olympics. But a lot of people wonder, when he comes back from the Olympics, there's a short stretch there before the trade deadline. Could that be when we see something? A lot of other people think that Crosby is such a creature of habit that if he does decide to do this, that it's going to happen in the off season so he can have a full campaign with whatever team he ends up going to. But again, interesting times ahead. So we started by talking about an opportunity to see an exclusive event featuring Sidney Crosby. Crosby won't be there in person, but obviously, the screening of the Amazon series is centered around him that you're going to see in Halifax if you're one of the attendees. And of course, we finished with some Crosby Futures discussion here as well. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors. Again, make sure if you're interested in that contest and you like to have tickets to go to that exclusive event, follow the instructions I gave earlier and you'll be entered for a chance to win. Thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.